Australia's tourism industry is rejoicing at the news that tourists will soon be allowed into the country after almost 2 years of border restrictions. The changes will also allow people to reunite with loved ones who were unable to get a visa under previous entry requirements. However, strict COVID-19 rules will still apply. Click on a link below to jump to the question. When can tourists come to Australia? All fully vaccinated visa holders, including tourists, will be allowed to travel to Australia without an exemption from February 21st. International arrivals will be subject to arrival caps and the quarantine requirements of each state or territory. Australian citizens, permanent residents, their family members and some vaccinated visa holders are already allowed to travel to Australia. Is Western Australia open to tourists? WA is open to travellers who arrive from overseas. However, from February 9th, the state's limit on international arrivals will be capped at 530 people per week. International arrivals to WA must complete a G2G pass declaration, undergo quarantine and COVID testing. Do tourists need a COVID-19 vaccine to travel to Australia? All international arrivals to Australia, including tourists, are required to be fully vaccinated unless they have proof of medical exemption. The federal government defines fully vaccinated as 2 doses for most vaccine brands and does not require international arrivals to have a booster shot. However, the Victorian government has flagged it may require international arrivals to have had 2 doses and a booster. Other states and territories may follow suit if the government's vaccine advisory body ADAGA changes the definition of fully vaccinated to mean 3 doses. In announcing the border reopening, Prime Minister Scott Morrison said people would not need 3 doses of a COVID vaccine to be considered fully vaccinated. It will be 2 doses. There are various arguments around the world for 3 doses. 2 doses is what the Chief Medical Officer says is sufficient, Mr. Morrison said on February 7th. WA tourist destinations like Lucky Bay will still be off limits due to arrival caps. ABC Goldfields Esperance, Jared Lucas. Can unvaccinated people travel to Australia? Unvaccinated travellers will need to provide proof that there is a medical reason that they cannot be vaccinated in order to travel to Australia. They must also apply for a travel exemption to come to Australia. If they are granted permission to travel, they must undergo mandatory hotel quarantine upon arrival. What COVID-19 vaccines does Australia recognise? International travellers to Australia are considered fully vaccinated if they have received COVID-19 vaccines recognised by the Therapeutic Goods Administration, TGA. That includes receiving 2 doses. Mixed doses are accepted of AstraZeneca Vaxzevria, AstraZeneca Vaxzevria, AstraZeneca Covishield, AstraZeneca Covishield, Pfizer, a BioNTech Comirnaty, Pfizer, a BioNTech Comirnaty, Moderna Spikevax or Takeda, Moderna Spikevax or Takeda, Sinovac Coronavac, Sinovac Coronavac, Bharat Biotech Covaxin, Bharat Biotech Covaxin, Sinopharm BBI Corv. 4 people under 60 years of age on arrival in Australia. Sinopharm BBI Corv. 4 people under 60 years of age on arrival in Australia. Gamaleya Research Institute Sputnik V. Gamaleya Research Institute Sputnik V. Novavax, a Bioselect Nuvaxovid. Or 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Silag. The final dose required to be fully vaccinated must have been received at least 7 days before travelling to Australia. Travellers must show airline staff their international COVID-19 vaccination certificate, ICVC, or a foreign vaccination certificate. Can unvaccinated children enter Australia? Children under 12 do not need to be vaccinated to travel to Australia. However, if the child is travelling with an unvaccinated adult family member, the entire family group will be subject to arrival caps and have to undergo mandatory hotel quarantine. Some state and territories allow for unvaccinated or partially vaccinated children aged 12 to 17 to travel with a fully vaccinated adult. Do tourists need to prove a negative COVID test? When checking in for their flight to Australia, international travellers must present either a negative PCR test taken within 3 days of departure, a negative PCR test taken within 3 days of departure, a negative nucleic acid amplification test taken within 3 days of departure, a negative nucleic acid amplification test taken within 3 days of departure, a medical certificate as evidence of a negative RAT taken under medical supervision within 24 hours of departure. Are cruise ships allowed? There is currently a ban on international cruise ships in Australia. The ban came into effect in March 2020 at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. It has been extended until mid-February 2022 due to the fast-spreading Omicron variant. The cruise industry says ships may not return to Australian waters until April or May this year. Space to play or pause, M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Watch duration, 2 minutes 3 seconds 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Data shows many older Australians haven't had their booster.